All right, welcome back. Thanks for sticking with us. Brandon Rhymes here, Consumer Quarterback Show. In studio with attorney Frank Miranda coming up here in just a moment. FCM Law in the house. And before we do, I want to touch on a couple of hot listings here that we've got in Tampa Bay. A couple of these properties just hit the market. This one is 3864 50th Avenue South in St. Petersburg. We just did a huge price improvement on this property. We were talking about the flexibility in real estate with Patrick Furlow last segment. The owners here have just reduced the price down to $599. Great opportunity here, 3864 50th Avenue South in St. Petersburg. 3 bedrooms, 2 bath, 2-car garage, 1659 square feet, fully remodeled property here. You have a gorgeous kitchen. I love the floor plan, the color scheme. It's an open floor plan. You have a island in the kitchen, stainless steel appliances, screened in back patio as well. And you're just a block away from the recently renovated Maximo Marina and the famous Tiki Docks right there in St. Petersburg. 3864 50th Avenue South, St. Petersburg, one of our hot listings. 1301 Rowan Tree Drive in Dover, Florida. Another listing of ours that just hit the market. This one is 5 bedrooms. It's a large home. 5 bedrooms, 3 bath, 3-car garage, 4223 square feet on Rowan Tree Drive in Dover. 2-story home on an oversized lot. Hardwood floorings, high ceilings throughout. You also have an elegant kitchen here with granite countertops, wood cabinetry, stainless steel appliances, a breakfast bar, and a separate island. Gorgeous property here. Convenient location as well. You're close to I-75, I-4, and 275. Fully fenced-in yard gives you that privacy and that safe space for those outdoor activities. Prime location with easy access to shopping, dining, parks, and excellent schools. 1301 Rowan Tree Drive in Dover, Florida. And you can see all of our listings at platinumcoastalelite.com. All right, quick shout out as well to Heights Soft Wash, pressure washing company here in Tampa Bay. HeightsSoftWash.com. Let them know the real estate quarterback sent you. Commercial, residential properties, they do a great job cleaning our real estate properties. HeightsSoftWash.com. Pressure washing company here in Tampa Bay. Say hello to Ramin. He's a super nice guy. All right, we got attorney Frank Miranda back in studio. Frank, welcome back, sir.
Hey, Brandon, thanks for having me.
Yes, sir. My pleasure. I wanted to get you to speak about this NAR lawsuit. This is kind of an antitrust case. What's your take on that?
So antitrust is a niche of the law which effectively tries to prevent monopolies. And by preventing monopolies, the theory is you create competition. By creating competition, you lower the price for the consumer on whatever a given product would be. In this scenario, there's actually what I found is there's 2 separate lawsuits going on, and they both involved the National Association of Real Estate Agents. And so the attack is that in order to get on the multi-listing services, which is MLS, which is predominantly always and historically has always been the place to go if to try to find a property, but you can only go there if you're a licensed realtor, and you can only use that platform if you comply with NAR, which is the National Association of Realtor Rules. And so what they're saying is because that has been predominantly and historically the way to market property, and because you're tied into using NAR rules, and if you don't comply with those rules, they can kick you off the platform, that real estate agents have effectively overly inflated the price of commissions because they're only going to sell properties with the highest commissions, which makes sense if you're the realtor, obviously, and it makes sense from a business perspective. What they're saying in the to counter that, I think, and the position is going to be that the houses that don't have the highest commissions should be shown also, should have the availability to the buyer, that there shouldn't be a monopoly, that you have to comply with NAR rules in order to see that platform, that there should be more negotiation between the buyer themselves and the seller and the seller's broker. The example I thought of just before air was effectively, hey, in a competitive market, and this probably works in a competitive market for this example to even work. You know, there was a situation we were in where people were overbidding on the property.
Yeah.
Right. Example, house is listed at 500, people are bidding 510, 520, 540, 550. We should also be able to go in there and say, well, my realtor, to induce you to sell me the house, instead of taking 2.5%, they'll take 2%. That can happen now, but the framework upon which the lawsuits are premised, this antitrust legislation, has some legs. And I'm not an antitrust expert. I never litigated antitrust. It's a complicated issue to get your arms around when you get in the weeds of it.
Mm-hmm.
We're certainly not getting the weeds of it today. But my perspective in reviewing the documentation online is you have two of the major players that were named as defendants in this case, and there's several defendants still remaining. And off the top of my head, those two umbrella companies have significant charter companies below them. I believe Remax, I believe Sotheby's and whatnot. And between two of them, they've settled for $83 million. That's a significant amount of money. And so my opinion is, in looking at this from 30,000 square feet, is that those companies who have very good lawyers on their side have a concern about this, and they paid what I would think is a pretty good number to get this case resolved.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the National Association of Real Estate Agents has not settled this case. I think they're going to fight this to the end, which might be a complete windfall for them, or it could completely ruin them if they lose.
Yeah.
And so it's a high stakes game of poker going on right now.
Yeah. And I haven't talked to anybody at Keller Williams about this, to get the official, Keller Williams stance on it. But this is just my take, the Brandon Rhymes take. So if you look at this, and this was published in the Wall Street Journal. It's an editorial. So this is a response from President of NAR, Tracy Casper. It's a well-written response to the Wall Street Journal, saying your editorial, "Realtors Face an Antitrust Reckoning." I mean, that title right there has basically saying, they have a reckoning coming, mischaracterizes what is at stake for consumers in Burnett versus NAR. Don't fall for the hype of class action attorneys about how local MLS broker marketplaces work. In response to the marketplace, and at the urging of consumer advocates, which is what we are here on this show, Consumer Advocate, the National Association of Realtors has developed guidance for local MLS broker marketplaces. It is part of a very public rule-making process aimed at creating the most consumer-friendly market possible. So I think if we boil all this down, it comes down to what's best for the consumer, right? So competition. So let's continue. These virtual marketplaces are efficient, transparent, and accurate because of cooperation amongst real estate professionals. Listing brokers make offers of compensation to buyers brokers who bring buyers to the table. Those offers can be any amount, even zero. The National Association of Realtors doesn't tell practitioners what to charge. That compensation is set between the brokers and their clients and is always negotiable. According to Real Trends, commission rates are well below where they were in the 90s, which I've heard stories 7-8% back in the 90s for a lot of deals. Realtors deliver a lot of value for the $50,000 they make annually on average. As a guide, they can guide consumers through legal, financial, community complexes of buying a home. Class action attorneys would take away buyer representation, and Black, Hispanic, Latino, first-time, low and middle-income buyers would be hurt the most, according to a May 2022 study. The NAR looks out for consumers with its rules for local MS broker marketplaces. In reality, the market, and hence the consumer, is in the driver's seat when it comes to real estate commissions, and that will be evident as NAR makes its case in court. So I think that was a well-written response. That's Tracy Casper, the president of NAR, responding to an article in the Wall Street Journal. But just take a look at some of the rules here, right? Whenever we take a listing, it has to go in the MLS within I think it's 24 hours or 48 hours, depending if you check a box that says, hey, I'm waiting on photography to come back. So that right there helps create competition amongst the whole entire MLS, people that are subscribed to the MLS. Whereas if that wasn't in place, then you would have these pocket listings where somebody could say, hey, I know you got an investor. Can you bring me an offer for this? I'll present it to the seller before it hits the market. So I think that's number one. And then, they also monitor the database, too, to make sure it's accurate, up to date. There's not any kind of, one thing you can't do is put your phone number in the pictures, so people will call you directly. They want you to go through their agent. It just ensures that there's an accurate, open place. And there's also the clear cooperation policy that ensures brokers and agents serve the best interests of consumers and promote equal opportunity to all. So anyways, that's kind of my take on it. I just, I haven't investigated as much, of course, as the attorneys involved would. But to me, it's like, why now? Here we are in 2023. This has been the way it's been for a long time. Seems like something would have happened before now. And to me, the ultimate goal is to protect the consumer. And it's a fair marketplace, in my opinion.
Yeah, I can't answer the question why now. I mean, that's a great question. There's no obvious answer that I can see as to why now. I guess the flip side of that argument, and obviously, we're both here, and I think realtors are an important part of the process. I should say a good realtor is important part of the process. I have seen scenarios where less professional people with a license, no matter what their profession is, have actually hindered the deal and actually caused harm. But, speaking in general, that if we're talking about true professionals, yes, they deserve to be compensated. One of the arguments I did read online, and I don't know how accurate this is, but this may be an argument made by the plaintiff's attorney, is that, in essence, the buyer is paying for that inflated commission because the prices have been inflated to cover that commission. So if the guy, hypothetically, the seller wants to sell for $500,000, but he's the one to pay those commissions because he knows he has to pay the commissions to find a reputable buyer. Mm-hmm. Then let's sell the property for $550. So the buyer's like, well, I didn't have to really pay $550. The commissions were low. Mm. It's kind of a circular argument, and to be honest with you, we're just going to be guessing because we don't have the pleadings. Like, I wish I had a copy of the lawsuit, right? And I wish I had a copy of the formal response, which is called the answer. Yep, the answer. I could be a lot, more informative of exactly what's going on, other than trying to decipher what's going on through these articles. Because at the end of the day, whoever's printing these articles, they're one side or the other. Yeah. And so it's their interpretation of what's going on, not mine. And so it's an interesting area of the law to look at, because it's a novel attack on the commission spectrum. Yeah, it is. And if they wanted to go for sale by owner, then they can stick it out there on some of these other sites and go for sale by owner. But what happens is the National Association of Realtor stats there is that only 7 to 8% of all for sale by owner properties actually sell. And of those 7 to 8 that do sell, about 50% sell to a friend or family member. So it comes into a play where, and if you analyze the FSBOs that sell, they sell under market. So they could have sold for more money if they were properly represented by a realtor, properly exposed to the market. But I understand it's an interesting topic, but to me it's just it's an attack on an existing power structure. Is the way I look at it. It's almost like a Marxist type strategy. Is like, hey, let's attack this and see where the cookies crumble, and then who knows? Maybe Amazon comes in and says, hey, I'm going to start a real estate company. To me, there's a lot more antitrust going on in this world right now. If you look at Google, you look at some of the bigger companies out there. Well, I think you guys, I don't want to say you guys, I think the real estate professional has been under attack now for quite some time. So right. We've discussed on the show before, you have these massive conglomerate companies trying to sell your house on the internet. Yep. They provide little to no service. To me, they're defrauding the customer. It's my opinion that they're defrauding the customer because the fees that you ultimately pay are not easily being able to be ascertained by the consumer. Right. And there's a lot of junk fees and whatnot at the bottom. So when they promise to sell your house for 1%, typically it's not 1%, because they tie you in to have to use their title closing services. And they have to use their inspector. You have to use their surveyor. Yep. And those prices are overly inflated in some regard. Yep. And so it's not really being truthful. And so there's a complete value in having a real estate agent that's professional, that knows what they're doing. Yep. The question of how this is going to shake out is yet to be determined. I don't even venture on it because, again, I don't know enough about that area of law and enough about the pleadings to ascertain that. But I will say that you guys have been under attack. Very similarly, we made this allegation before we came on air. Doctors are getting paid less money now by health insurance companies than they got paid 20 years ago. Right. How do we allow that as a community? That's crazy. It is. Yep, I agree. Yeah, if you look at what's good for the consumer, it's not getting into a lawsuit, not, trying to sell their home. Can you imagine if people just sold their homes themselves, right? As a whole, as a general practice, it's like,
wow, what about lead-based paint? What about the condo disclosures? All the different things that could happen, right? So there'd be a lot more litigation going on. There'd be a lot more challenges. So the realtors serve a great purpose. And I agree with the good ones, right? But let's take a quick break there. More with attorney Frank Miranda, FCMlaw.com, coming up here on the Consumer Quarterback Show. I want to talk a little bit about commercial real estate when we come back. Some of the biggest markets have a 40 to 60% utilization rate. So in other words, they're about half empty, a lot of the biggest markets in commercial real estate, and there could be a flood of foreclosures coming. I want to talk with Frank about that here on the flip side. So stay with us here on the Consumer Quarterback Show. Follow us online. We'd love to connect with you at CQB Show, at Brandon Rhymes 1, and subscribe to the YouTube channel, Brandon Rhymes Realty. We'll be right back.
This is Work Done, and you're listening to the Real Estate Quarterback Show, hosted by my man, Brandon Rhymes.
To get in touch with Brandon, call 727-263-3707. Online at consumerqb.com.
Patriot Mobile is America's only Christian conservative wireless provider who shares your values. They offer the very best nationwide coverage on 4G and 5G LTE networks and exceptional 100% US-based customer support. Patriot Mobile offers discounts for veterans and first responders, NRA members, and families with multiple lines. Learn more at patriotmobile.com/consumer QB. That's patriotmobile.com/consumer QB. Or if you'd like to give us a call, you can reach out at 727-263-3707. That's 727-263-3707. And we'd be happy to tell you more about Patriot Mobile. Selling commercial, vacant land, or residential properties? Don't leave money on the table. List with the Platinum MVP team at Keller Williams Realty. I'm Brandon Rhymes. You can reach me at 727-263-3707. Call or text 727-263-3707. Online at consumerqb.com.
You're listening to the Consumer Quarterback, Brandon Rhymes, cutting through your typical media nonsense and offering you a rational and unbiased perspective on current events and life in Tampa Bay. Online at consumerqb.com.
All right, Brandon Rhymes here, Consumer Quarterback Show. We're powered by the Platinum MVP team at Keller Williams Realty. We're going to talk more about commercial real estate with attorney Frank Miranda here in Tampa Bay. FCMlaw.com can handle all of your real estate closings, title work, litigation, lawsuits, real estate law, of course. Also has a sports division. I want to talk about that here in just a moment as well. Before we do, a couple of hot listings from our real estate team, the Platinum MVP team at Keller Williams Realty. We've got a property at 5146 Marine Parkway. This is a commercial property just off of US 19. You got 50,000 vehicles a day passing by that corner location there. This one is in Newport Richey. It's an exceptional storefront space. You got large natural light or windows that invite the natural light in, open and versatile floor plan. This operating currently as a pool and spa supply. Of course, it can be converted to other uses. Ample parking, great location, Marine Parkway. You got new condos being built right across the street there off of US 19. That's 5146 Marine Parkway. You can see all of our listings at platinumcoastalelite.com.
This is God's country.
All right, Frank, so another big trend has been the commercial office space. You know, people, a lot of employers saying, hey, fine, we'll give you this workspace, this work flex schedule. You can work from home part-time, saving some money potentially. But here is an article I pulled down from a local economist, a friend of mine here in Tampa Bay. Says there's too much uncertainty in office for a legitimate consideration as a viable investment right now without a substantial discount. It's also why lenders aren't interested in financing it. The biggest office markets have a 40 to 60% utilization rate, which in essence means about 50% vacancy. There are large amounts of sublease and shadow inventory with leases still to come due in 3 to 5 years from now. We're in the early innings of this correction, he's saying. And while converting office to multifamily sounds like a plan, right? You keep hearing how much lack of inventory we have for homeowners and home buyers. You first need to find a near vacant building so you're not buying out leases at a premium. And then you got to look at the plumbing and the floor plates to see, if that conversion would work. So he's saying stay away from this. He's mentioning a couple different markets, Dallas and Houston. I guess they're kind of up right now, fastest job gains. And then San Francisco, Chicago, Washington are the lower side of that equation. But in addition, higher financing costs today, there are around $80 billion in commercial loans in office space that require refinancing within the next 2 years, with office rent growth almost non-existent. And further anticipation of a fall in occupancy, distressed foreclosed office buildings will hit the market over the next 2 years. Your take on that, your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think depending where you're at in the country, he's right.
Yeah.
Most banks that I've talked to some banks recently regarding this very issue, most banks want to lend right now only on owner-occupied buildings.
Right.
So if it's your company and you want to occupy the building, you have a shot of getting a refinance or you're getting a loan for that deal.
Less risk.
Less risk. And that loan is also going to be at a higher interest rate. The buildings that I have heard are doing well, at least in the Tampa, in the city proper Tampa, that are doing okay are still the higher end buildings. The B and C buildings for office space in Tampa, you're going to find vacancies. Again, if you have those as investments and you have current tenants, you might want to keep those tenants happy as long as you're going along and make sure that you maintain occupancy.
Yep.
If you lose occupancy, you have zero shot of probably getting that refinanced if your loan's going to come due.
Right.
So, I think you'll see rents level out. There's no question that companies have found out that they don't need as much space because everyone during COVID worked remotely and it worked just fine. And so they figured out they can now net more money by paying less for space, and they're happy to do it. And so, yeah, I think your economist is on point.
Yeah, exactly. I think so, and it's interesting to see, kind of where we're at now. Will the Fed continue to raise rates? That's of course, anybody's guess, and the challenges that we have going forward are there. Take a minute or so. Talk a little bit about your team and what you offer here in Tampa Bay. Stephanie and the team over there doing a great job on the real estate closings, and talk a little bit about your sports management too.
Yeah, so we effectively have a pretty well-rounded law firm. We litigate business issues, real estate issues, obviously. We also do the title closings, transactional stuff, and we're fortunate enough to have people trust us and refer us work on a consistent basis, and we've always been a word-of-mouth type of law firm. We've also handled wrongful death, mass tort type of actions, BP claims, hernia mesh claims, that kind of thing. And we've also recently started what's called For Life Management. For Life Management, I'm actually an NFL agent at this point in time. We started that last year. We have 2 kids, I should say young men.
Yeah.
I call them kids now because I'm in my 50s, but 2 young men,
Yeah.
One with Cincinnati and one with the Tennessee Titans, and we're working on next year's crop. And our business model with that is we're going to watch them not only when they play football, we're going to guide them afterward to try and ensure that they're not a statistic where 85% are pretty much desolate after 3 years of playing, and we're going to try and guard against that and change the business model.
Right. Yeah, that's pretty cool, man. Yep. I think that's a big concern for athletes, and it has been for a while. You see these different documentaries that I think even ESPN has done.
It's all bad investments.
Yeah, bad investments. You got all the brothers from the hood or whoever coming up. Hey, man, I got an idea for you. What about this? And man, I've known you my whole life. Give me $50,000, $100,000. Let's, I can make this work, right? I mean, they're getting thrown every kind of opportunity at them, right?
Yeah, and listen, we preach the best word that you're going to learn how to say is no.
Right.
So, in the best plan scenarios, 95% of businesses fail.
Right.
And they're well funded, and they have people with experience, and they fail.
That's right.
And so, what do you think your odds are when you have people that have no experience getting into something?
Exactly.
It's terrific.
You got to bounce it off your attorney. Attorney Frank Miranda, FCMlaw.com. Always a pleasure having you in. Thanks for talking about that NAR lawsuit with me, too.
Hey, no problem. Anytime.
My pleasure. All right, hey, another great show. We had Patrick Furlow, Step by Stage Interiors, attorney Frank Miranda as well. And we want you to please go out there and consider committing a random act of kindness. Do something kind for one another. Be a force for good in the community. And we'll see you next time right here on the Consumer Quarterback Show, consumerqb.com.
You've been listening to The Consumer Quarterback, Brandon.